Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert
and Ryan.
And today, Ryan, do you want to give us a little intro on what we're doing today?
So it's halfway through the year of 2023, and sometimes when we do like an end of the year list, I feel like, but what about all those movies that like could have made the list like halfway through the year or something? And so I thought that it might be good to do a list for the movies from the first half of the year, especially because I do think recency bias does play a part in like how lists get ranked. Like last year, we both ranked number one a movie that came out in the first like half of the year. But I think like a lot more of our movies tend to skew later in the year because that's also tends to be when like movie studios put out like more like prestige, like higher movies sort of thing. And so movies from the first half of the year can get lost in the shuffle. Also, I saw a bunch of movies from 2022 during 2023 after we did our 2022 list, and some of them are really good and I want to, put them on a list, but I don't know if it's going to be right to put them on a list of the best movies of 2023. So this is a good opportunity to sort of, get some of those stragglers in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So before we go into this, our top 10 list for the first half of the year, let me just say, I only have 14 movies I watched. How many movies did you watch, Ryan?
Oh, like we're kind of in the same boat. I only watched 78.
Yeah. So I really am picking from a much shorter list. I mean, really, I had to pick which ones didn't make it. And even before we started the podcast, I had to like fight over my 10 spot to see which one really made it there. But Ryan's probably going to have a lot more interesting choices, a lot more variety, and maybe movies, I or others haven't heard of or didn't see. So I'm interested to see what you've got going on.
Yeah, my top 10 is going to have movies that I think a lot of people have not seen and maybe not even heard of.
Well, I'm definitely interested to hear. So maybe it will push me over the edge to go watch some of those movies now. But yeah.
Which one of us should start? Let's start with you, since we had to talk it out, and so I already know your number 10.
Yeah, so we did discuss this right before the podcast started. I was literally torn between two movies, and then I actually ended up picking a third movie, not even one of the two that I was originally looking at. But the number 10 spot is going to be Renfield.
Yes,
it's just a decent enough, kind of funny, kind of actiony, cool movie. Like sort of a sleeper almost. Like I don't think it got a ton of marketing. Nicolas Cage, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it was a trailer that I saw a lot of the times when I went into the movie theater, and I remember seeing that trailer for the first time and just being like, "Oh, this looks neat. This looks cool. Yeah, this is fun." And then because the primary trailer, it saves Nicolas Cage being Dracula as a reveal at the end of the trailer, and when that happened, I was like, "Oh, okay, this looks great. This looks fun."
Yeah. And one thing I want to say is that Awkwafina, don't really like her that much as an actor in general. But because I feel like, she's like somebody they like shove into movies a lot of times. And I'm just like, why is she here? She's actually fine in this movie. And so I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, she's just actually just playing some normal role that she's doing fine at.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool.
Yeah. It's probably my second favorite performance of her from the year. First being her performance as Scuttle from the live action Little Mermaid.
I have not seen such a performance. So
in which she gets her own original song called The Scuttlebutt.
I have heard of this. I've heard the clips of this song.
Yeah. I like that song.
Check out, womp womp, check out. Yeah. So that's something. But let's move on to your number 10. What is your number 10? Because I know Renfield, even though you liked it, on over 78 movies, didn't even make your top 10. So
yeah, it was like 30 something. Yeah. But my number 10 is the nominated for best film at best picture at the 2022 Oscars, and I believe this was the only best picture nominee that I had to wait for 2023 to watch. Women Talking.
Well, every time I hear that name of that movie, I'm just like, Yeah, I don't know. That was an interesting choice in movie name, but
See, it's accurate though, because it's pretty much about women talking, except for the sometimes when the one guy in the movie talks to the women. So even then, a woman is still talking in the scene.
yeah, unfortunately, like there's a part of me where I like definitely just kind of almost in a joking manner wrote it off. I was like, who would want to watch women talking, right? Like as a joke, I literally was joking, like, but like I did kind of write it off. I just chose not to watch it, even though it was a nominee, and probably deserved being watched. Like it's probably actually a fine movie.
It did win best writing in its category. I think that was adapted, and then Everything Everywhere won for original on the screenplay. And I think Women Talking absolutely deserved that Oscar. In fact, it could have won more. It should have probably been nominated for Best Director at the very least. But yeah, like the movie tells, for people who are unfamiliar with the story of the movie, basically it tells the story of this like it's like not quite like Amish Meta Knight, but like that sort of vibe of a community dealing with the revelation that there were basically men sexually assaulting women. And the women are trying to decide whether or not they're going to stay and just like sort of like accept that they're in this community with these men that were doing these bad things, fight, like try to like take power from the men, or to just leave. And like the whole movie is just them sort of discussing and weighing the options of those three different pathways, and like sharing like stories and like anecdotes about the people. And yeah, it's like it's literally women talking. It is an accurate name for the movie, but the way that it's written and the way that the characters speak to each other, I just found it very engaging. Like I did not get bored watching that movie.
Does this take place like in one set, like, or does it move around a lot, like between different places?
It's all basically set on this like farm, like community, like when you imagine like Amish people or Mennonites or like people from the past or what have you, you can sort of like get a picture. It's set in this one place, and most of the conversations occur in this barn. But like it's not like solely like just, it's not like a complete bottle thing.
You know what? When you're talking about it, and this is like kind of maybe in like an old dig, is that it reminds me of like, okay, like just watching like a bunch of women talking, right? It reminds me of like 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's really like, I mean, you're just watching 12 guys talk about a court case, but it's fascinating.
Yeah. Like, and yeah, that's a great movie as well. And if this movie, like there's a little like they're not completely in one room the whole time, but yeah, I think that the two movies do like share some level of similarity to them, because it's basically a movie. Yeah, it's a movie about talking, women talking, in fact.
Honestly, it's funny. Even though you did tell me a little bit about it before, I feel like that description you gave me right there, where I thought of 12 Angry Men and thought of like, wow, I actually enjoyed that movie and it was still interesting. Maybe I want to watch it a little more. So maybe I'll actually take the time to check it out if it's on like one of the services we subscribe to.
Yeah.
So with that though, let's move on to your number 9.
My number 9. So this is the first of two possible recency biases, but and my number 9 movie literally came out on Netflix on June 30th, 2023. So I watched it very recently, but it's going to be the animated film Nimona.
I've never even heard of this. What is this about?
So it's adapted from, I believe, like some sort of like other like media. I didn't actually look into what it was, if it was like a comic book, graphic novel, or like a book. But it basically tells the story of a knight, of a man who's being knighted as like the first person to become a knight in this like community world city that was not like born of noble blood. And he had this dream to become a knight even though he wasn't a noble, and like he's like worked hard his whole life to become a knight. And on the day that he is to become a knight, something occurs that sort of like flips the script on him, and see, I don't want to give away that, even though it's very early into the movie, but he ends up getting paired with a girl named Nimona, or technically a girl, technically not a girl. It's complicated.
Complicated.
Yeah.
That sounds like a story I might be interested to watch.
Yeah. And it's like got that sort of like post Spider-Verse like animation where like the animation style is sort of like new and refreshing in some ways. It's not like over the top, like, oh my God, this is like so beautifully animated, but it is very nice to look at. It's like, it is appealing to the eyes, in my opinion. And yeah, it's a good movie. Like, I had fun. And again, this could be a recency bias that I watched it recently, and so I haven't had time to reflect and be like, oh, maybe this movie's not as good as I think it is, but it's good enough to be my number 9 right now.
Again, another sounds like something else I might be interested to watch. So
it's on Netflix.
Yeah. I don't actually have Netflix. I stopped subscribing to that a long time ago and I got logged out. So
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I could find it somewhere though. But if you're done, then I guess I can propose my number 9.
Yes.
And nothing against this movie, but again, like, this movie might not have made a few of these movies might not have made a top 10 if I didn't only have a few to choose from, but this was a good enough movie, and it does. I mean, I'm not mad that it is at my 9 spot. Is Creed 3.
I really like that movie.
Yeah,
that's a really good movie in my opinion.
Yeah, I never watched any of the Creed movies.
That's my number 16. So like, I don't think that is a bad choice at all.
Yeah, and it's almost because I know that you watch so many, it almost makes me think like, well, maybe I'm like forcing these movies into the top 10 spots because like I don't have any to choose from. But yeah, like I went back. It was when I was on a trip to Ireland. I watched all 3 of the Creed movies. I had downloaded them on HBO Max, and that's what I was watching on the airplanes and when I was just had downtime. And yeah, I was just like, wow, these are just good movies. And Creed 3 is just a good third movie in this series. And yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. What? I can't remember his name.
Michael B. Jordan or Jonathan Majors?
Jonathan Majors. Yeah, he just has such a presence that is like fantastic. Michael B. Jordan is just a good, I mean,
yeah, his
good actors.
His presence in that movie like far outweighs like what he was putting out in like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah. And Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think he was still one of the better parts of that movie. So
yeah.
But yeah, a good solid movie, and it makes my 9 spot. Not much else to say about it, really.
Yeah, and so like you, I had to catch up and watch like the first 2 Creed movies before it, and like having watched them all sort of next to each other, you see that Creed 3 takes a different directorial style. Like it feels like a different kind of movie than the first 2 Creeds. And that is because this is the first one to be directed by Michael B. Jordan. And I think he has a very, I like the sort of flair that he puts into his direction of the movie. And I appreciate that this is the first Rocky movie to not have Rocky in it. I haven't seen any of the actual Rocky movies though. So,
lame, whack.
Yeah.
Where's Rocky?
Yeah. But like, I like this movie just gets to be its own thing. It stands alone. Like this, if it weren't called Creed 3, this could have been its own like standalone movie either way, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. On to my number
8. I think so.
Math is hard. It's going to be the Super Mario movie.
Great movie.
Yeah, just a solid movie. I think, to even be a little critical of it in some ways, while I certainly did enjoy it, I think, as far as video game movies, is it still the highest grossing movie of the year?
Yes. Yeah. It's not even close.
Not even surprised. Don't even begrudge it for making that much that much money. They gave us what we wanted ultimately. Like that's how I felt about the movie. I was like, it's a Super Mario Bros. Movie, and they gave us everything we could have asked for. They're just like the characters are kind of what we expected, other than my one biggest, the thing I absolutely despise about this movie that made it less good for me is Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong.
See, and I didn't feel that way.
I feel like this is my biggest gripe is I feel like they robbed Donkey Kong of his character by making it just be Seth Rogen. The whole time I'm like, every other character, I recognize those voices. Even Jack Black, who's clearly being Jack Black as Bowser, still felt like I was watching Bowser and he was his own character. Seth Rogen Donkey Kong I was like, this is literally just Seth Rogen. Like, he's not even doing anything here.
It's funny because like my biggest issue with the movie was the voicing of a Kong, but it wasn't Donkey, it was Cranky. Like Fred Armisen is Cranky Kong. I did not like at all.
Yeah, I mean,
and I really like Fred Armisen. So the damn dirty apes.
Them damn dirty apes, they ruined the movie. But I mean, still a good movie, man. They just gave us everything we wanted. Really hit us hard with the nostalgia bat in this one. But I don't begrudge it. It's a good and fine enough story. There are other things I could comment on about the story itself, but overall, they tried to follow a decent story structure, and I appreciate for that. So I enjoyed it. I had a good time, and I think it's a good movie that everybody can enjoy as well. Like kids can enjoy it. I know that my goddaughter, it's like her new obsessed movie that she watches every day.
Good.
Yeah, I'm like, that's fine. Yeah, like of all the movies you could be watching every day, there's no, I don't feel bad about that.
Yeah, and Nintendo does not feel bad about it either. Let's go. Where's the Legend of Zelda movie?
Yeah.
Where's the Nintendo universe?
Yeah, run it. Let's bring it.
The NCU, the Nintendo Cinematic Universe.
The what is that? What they call it in the old Super Smash Bros. Game when they had the campaign mode, the slip space.
Something. Subspace Emissary.
Yeah, the Subspace Emissary universe.
Damn. All right. So moving on to my number 8. I wonder if I can't remember if you saw this movie. If you did, it might be on your list. If you didn't, then I guess it wouldn't be. But the movie that took the internet by storm prior to it even coming out, Megan.
I didn't see this movie.
Yeah. No. This movie's lit. This movie is great, bro. Dude, my guy. It's Chucky, but not.
Yeah, you know that I'm not like a huge like horror fear. Like if I'm gonna watch like horror movies in general, I want them to be like psychological thrillers typically. And so like that one was just like, yeah, that's all. I mean, it didn't look bad. Actually, I think she had like the perfect uncanny valley face, and it made it extra like that could add to the terror. So like looking at it, it didn't look like it was that bad, but it's not like.
So the one thing that I do like, I feel is important to know about this movie is that it bills itself as a horror movie. And I think for a while, like even on like Wikipedia, like the movie was like described as like straight horror, but that's kind of inaccurate because it's absolutely like a horror comedy, and it's a quite funny horror comedy. Like it is a legitimately funny movie, and it like is trying to get at a point that I think is like fairly interesting for a horror movie to get at about like the roles of technology and parenting in the modern day. And it's just like Megan as a creation is just, there's just something about her that's entertaining to watch and entertaining to like see her kill things. And the fact that the movie was cut down from R to PG-13. I believe that the R cut of this movie is probably a lot better. And I would like to see that. I don't know if it's been made available. I should probably look that up to see. But yeah.
Release the Snyder cut.
Yeah. Release the Megan cut. And the butthole cut of Cats.
The butthole cut of, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
You think so?
Yeah. Okay, so I think you're number 7.
Number 7, another recency bias, because I just watched this movie like yesterday. And in fact, the last movie that I watched to sort of count on this list, but it's a movie called Past Lives.
Past Lives. Tell me a little bit about that.
So it's follows this pair of this like male female pair of people from Korea. They sort of start their lives when they're 12, like at the same school, and they're like clearly close friends, and like they like each other, and it's very cute. And it's like, oh, like ooh. Like if they get to grow up together, they probably like, would be in a relationship or some sort of thing. However, the girl the girl's parents are decide to move to immigrate out of Korea, and I believe they immigrate to Canada first. And so she basically leaves, and so because they go like halfway across the world from each other, they're separated, and like there's not really a way for them to reconnect. But 12 years later, when they're both 24, the magic of the internet and Facebook and Skype allows them to reconnect and like start talking to each other over Skype, which it's very funny to see Skype in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like RIP Skype. Really missed the ball. But yeah, so they get this chance to sort of reconnect again at the age of 24, but because like the place they are in their lives, it makes it difficult. Like they wouldn't be able to like actually meet up with each other for like a year out. And so they decide to sort of like move on with their lives from then. And then we see them again another 12 years later, where she has gotten married and he has been in like a relationship, and it's basically just like them. It's hard to sort of describe the movie, I guess, like because I've described the movie, but it's a lot about like just the connection and the relationship and the conversations between these two, and it's just fascinating.
That, I mean, I think now that once you started describing it, I did remember I had seen commercials for this, and I did think in my head, like, it kind of reminded me of what's that one, the film that we watched for the Oscar nominees? It was a foreign film. I mean, I'm saying it's foreign because that's starring Korean actors, but
Minari?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that might be it. Even though that they don't really have much to do, but like just a I don't know. It sounds like something I might be interested to watch.
Yeah, it's well. Like again, this is one of those movies where like if I just like only tried to like watch movies that I believe that I would like, I might not have taken the time to go out and watch this movie. But one, this movie's very highly rated, which sort of, helps to encourage me to want to go see it. Mm-hmm. But like, I want to sort of like push myself to watch things that I don't think that I would have watched otherwise. And that was one of my goals for the year. And so I'm happy to have watched this movie. And it would not surprise me if like come like award season, this movie is like in conversation somewhere. We haven't seen like the latter half of the year's movies yet though. So maybe it gets lost in the shuffle, but I would not be surprised if it got some recognition down the line.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if you thought like this seemed like cause I think when I had seen the commercials for it, I thought kind of like, this seems like it might be like in the Oscar nominee kind of territory of
like,
film.
This is a movie that I would consider like, if the Oscars didn't nominate it, then low key, like the Oscars can like blah sort of movie.
Yeah. Plus Dune and Oppenheimer are probably just going to like run the Oscars this year.
If they're both good. I mean, I think Dune has the better chance of being good because it's based on source material people already like. But I do have my heart set on Oppenheimer being good.
I would be very surprised if Oppenheimer is not exactly what we expected to be.
Yeah. I've ordered my Barbenheimer shirt and I'm ready.
You really got a Barbenheimer shirt?
I did.
Oh, wow. Why didn't you get me one?
I want to make sure that it's good first because it's coming from Etsy. And so I don't know what the quality is going to be.
Okay. Okay. Does that make it move on to my number 7?
Yes.
Okay. My number 7 is Sisu.
Can I tell you Sisu was my number 11 and I had to decide between it and Women Talking?
Yeah, I mean, and I can see why you would go with Women Talking because it probably is a little bit more deserving. But Sisu, you get what you came for. Just good action. Some Nazi freaking killing.
Kills Nazis. Yeah, like, God. Great movie.
Yeah, just, I will say, like one little thing I had, and it was really just the I don't want to like spoil like this movie is starring a man of true grit who is just like moving through wounds and
there's
pain and stuff.
There's some suspension of disbelief that you have to take into this movie in terms of what you believe he can live through. Like Like, if you've seen the John Wick movies and you're like, how did he survive that? This movie's just like, hold my beer.
Yeah, this movie, by the end of the movie, will really challenge your again, just the suspension of disbelief. Like, you're like, okay, I could take, like, maybe he took that bullet or that stab wound, but like once we get to this and that, I'm like, why is this guy still standing? But honestly, you just don't begrudge it because you're really like, yeah, but who cares? Like, fuck it. This is just a badass action movie. He's a badass. And, he just was like, yeah, I will not stop and I survive all this stuff because I'm great. You just take it and move on and just enjoy what this movie was. And yeah.
So you take it and you like it.
You take it, you like it. So that's, not much else to say about it. Just a good, solid action movie.
No, yeah. Like, again, good movie if you didn't see it, and you like John Wick type movies, you like action movies. This is a very good one. So, is it my number 6 or your number 6? Your number 6.
My number 6. Well, speaking of John Wick, it's not my number 6. It's my number 6 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
I've heard of that movie.
Yeah, this was though I have some comments about this at certain places in the movie. Overall, have been disappointed by a lot of MCU movies and superhero movies in general that have been coming out. This one, I was happy and satisfied with. I was literally like happy. I was like, wow, this was actually good. And so glad to have it on the list. It gave me what I've been wanting, which is just some of the fun of Guardians but like the cool superhero-ness. And I will say one of my critiques of it is that I feel like over the time, a thing that they did with both, like I saw it a lot in Thor, which is why I was like really upset with Love and Thunder. But I feel like as it went on, they went from Drax being just like an ironic guy to like he's kind of dumb.
The sort of flanderization of characters in the Guardians.
Yeah. Like, what is flanderization?
It's like when like a character like starts out as like having like some quirks about them that as like it's more prevalent in TV series where over time like a little quirk about a character becomes like their entire character.
Yeah.
Like another good example is like in The Office. Like Kevin is like a little like maybe like not the brightest bulb, but like later on, like is literally mistaken for being like mentally like challenged.
Yeah, exactly. So that is kind of what seems to have happened here a little bit is that he, and in the second movie, while he was like really funny, but this one moved to the point where he was like dumb. He's like he's doing silly things, except there's like a redeeming, like, oh, he's not, he might not be super smart, but he's very empathetic and or something like at the end of the movie, which actually doesn't make any sense because he's never been empathetic before at all. But maybe with children, it's different.
Yeah. He's a daddy. He's a father.
Yeah, and I think he's a cool character, and it really just it reminds me of what they did with Thor, what they did to my boy. Where I don't appreciate that devolution, but overall, the movie just gave us so many good things, and it gave us the first fucking MCU. So.
It did, yeah. So yeah, the movie is sort of James Gunn's goodbye from the MCU, and yeah, he did a good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I was quite satisfied with it. So yeah.
My number 6 is let me look at my list. Okay, so this is probably the weirdest choice. This is probably the movie that the least amount of people have heard of. And I only heard of this movie because one of like the sort of film critics that I like to watch on YouTube had it in his top 10 movies from last year. And so this is technically the first movie I watched this year and also the last movie I watched last year because I started watching it like on New Year's Eve, like right before midnight, and I finished it in the new year. So, yeah.
So what is this?
It's a movie called Brian and Charles.
Okay. I'm going to need you to tell me a little bit about that one.
So, Brian is this British man, like living in this like small, like quaint English sort of village. And he's an inventor. He likes to invent things. And he invents like sort of like silly little things that like he starts describing his inventions and it's like very quirky and British like things that like don't like they're not like actually useful things. And then one day he decides he's just gonna build a person. He's gonna build a robot person. And he does that, and he builds Charles. And yeah, the rest of the movie is just about like Brian and Charles, like Brian sort of introducing Charles to the world and how the world works and like the way that they sort of get along and like have friction between them because Brian has to like sort of guard Charles from the world around him. Or he feels that he has to be protective. It's like almost like a parenting thing. But yeah, like the movie just has like this like little like quirk and charm to it that it's just delightful.
I don't know why when you're describing this, is this movie in claymation?
It's not.
Okay. You know why I'm like,
it has that Wallace and Gromit like.
That's what it sounded like when you're describing it to me. I'm like, yeah, this is like a Wallace and Gromit made movie.
No, it is live action. But yeah, it's a delightful little movie.
You know, it's funny because I might have to say this again, and I've said it before, is that when you're describing this movie, it sounds like something I would probably enjoy watching, even though I definitely have never heard of that. Like,
yes, this is the wildest card on my list.
Where did you heard about it, or what did you watch it on? Did you watch it in theaters?
No, I watched it like it was on Peacock when I streamed it because it came out like in, I don't know when in 2022, but like it wasn't. By the time I had learned about it, it was not in theaters.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds like an interesting. See, I appreciate that you have so many unique things on here because I feel like anybody that might happen to listen to the podcast and myself now can be intrigued to go watch a movie that, where if you watch 78 movies this year and Brian and Charles made it up into the top 10, that it must be an exceptional movie. So
I'm telling you, like it just had like. It feels weird to put the movie in there because it's just it is a very, I guess the good word is, it's like a slight movie. Like it's small. It's like not like very, but like I just sort of like, yeah, it's good. I like it.
Awesome. All right. Well, now I think we're breaching into the top 5.
The top 5. So Brian and Charles, that's a movie that, if I was doing a year-end list for 2023, I don't know if I can technically count it because not only is it like truly a movie that came out in 2022, I kind of watched it in 2022. And so like it's sort of like iffy on whether or not it deserves to be ranked in the movies of 2023 because I had the opportunity to watch it in 2022 and I just didn't.
So you're a cheater and you have to throw the whole list out.
Yes, but except I, preface that I was going to include those types of movies.
Yeah.
Number 5 is another one of those movies where I had full opportunity to watch this movie like months in advance, and I probably should have. It came out on Netflix, like I want to say like sometime like in the middle of 2022. And I don't even think I had heard of it. But I just decided to watch it one day, and it's a little movie called Do Revenge.
Okay, again, I'm gonna have
you
gotta tell me.
And so this movie, like this movie, I think people may have actually heard of because it's not like a indie movie like at all. It is starring Maya Hawke, and I don't remember her name, but she played Veronica in Riverdale.
Yeah, I don't know her name either, but I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the brunette of the two, not the blonde one. And she's actually the main character of the movie. And it's basically like I've heard it described as like this generation's Mean Girls, and I think that is a fair way to describe this movie. Is it as good as Mean Girls? Maybe not, but I do think that it deserves to be like in that sort of legacy of films, like of like the Mean Girls, the Heathers, and stuff like that. Because this movie is just like great. It's basically the main character and Maya Hawke's character essentially sort of team up to get revenge on the people who slighted them. And particularly the main character girl, like she's this popular girl, but then like a nude of her leaks online, and then she like gets into a fight with the person that leaked the nude, and then she's like painted out to be the bad guy, and she's ostracized from like the popular people. And yeah, she's just trying to get revenge on them, and she's getting the help of Maya Hawke's character, who's like more of like basically a loser and is new to the school, if I recall correctly. And yeah, and stuff happens from there, and there may be some twists and turns.
Is revenge done?
Some revenge definitely occurs.
It gets dude.
Yes, the revenge is dude.
Right on. That one, well, again, it's really nothing against what you described. It doesn't like super pique my interest as like a movie I would love to see, but it doesn't sound bad.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's very good.
So, reaching into my top 5.
Your Cinco.
This is my top 5, right? Yeah, okay, it is my top 5. Is a movie where, I mean, there's definitely some bias because it's starring my celebrity crush, but A Good Person.
Oh, yes.
With Florence Pugh and Morgan Freeman.
I didn't know that Morgan Freeman was your celebrity crush.
Well, Zach Braff is, and he directed it. So.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But so yeah, just a good, solid, like a drug recovery story kind of thing. A person
addiction.
A person has a terrible event, and you kind of portrays the like opium painkiller. And how that affects people live, and a little deeper than that. There is a little more in the movie than just that. I did hear, was it you that told me or somebody else that told me how like people online criticize this for being very like, tropey basic for like, these kind of movies like rehabilitation.
Yeah, that's what I had heard to sort of critique the movie.
Yeah, which I recall my response to that being, well, yeah, if just like in any action / comedy / things, they all have the tropes. So like saying, hey, you're doing similar things to other portrayals of addiction stories is like a very bad criticism of this movie. What are they going to do? How are they going to step out of the, like really bring something unique to the table here when they're just trying to tell a story? I mean, addiction stories are all very similar. So, I mean, yeah, if you're telling a genuine one, it probably should look like a lot of other ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, just another fantastic performance like Florence Pugh, Morgan Freeman, great. There's a few other actors in there whose maybe names I don't like know specifically, but like everybody in this is just good. I don't know her name, but like Florence Pugh's mother in the story. But she's been in tons of things.
I think it's Molly Shannon.
Yeah, and she was good in it too. It was just a good movie. Kind of got my heartstrings. Felt like it had some emotional weight and like kind of a lesson in the end. And good job, Zach Braff. I don't think he's like hit it out of the park with all of his movies he's directed, but this was a good one.
I liked Garden State.
I didn't actually see that one, so
yeah, it's like it's a fine movie.
Yeah,
and A Good Person is a fine movie.
I like it. I think it is a good, swell movie. And again, there is just bias because I just when you put Florence Pugh in things, I just like them more. So
you know what else Florence Pugh is in? Oppenheimer.
Is she in Oppenheimer?
She is.
She's also in Dune.
Yeah.
And because I read the Dune book, I know exactly what character she's going to play just because I can tell.
I mean, 2023 is 2020 Pew.
2020. That's a good one right there.
So you go into your number 4.
My number 4. This movie, I'm going to say right now, total bias. It makes it this high because of absolute bias on my part. When I saw this movie, I said, if you are like me, you will like this movie a lot more. Other people, this is just a good and fine movie. It's an okay movie. Like I'm not like, I think for the average audience, like it's fun, but like it loses some significance. This is the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which having played Dungeons and Dragons for a long time, being very familiar with the world it's set in, where the whole movie, I'm like, I know what that is. That's this spell, that place, this person, like that creature. It elevates it to a whole nother level for me. Like I'm in on all the jokes, I'm in on all the references. But otherwise it's just a, good and fine story. But for me, it just hit that level. Like for me personally, it gets into the A territory, but if I take myself out and more objective about it as just a story, I think it falls more into like the lower B-ish area, like still a good and fine, maybe even upper average movie.
Your letter grades just sound so harsh to me.
Upper average. It's a slightly above average, movie. Maybe even like.
See, but like, yeah,
my letter grades are actually accurate. Okay, C is an average, not a punishment.
If you were a teacher, like kids would hate you.
Uh,
You're average. You have to be a C.
I'm using a real system. I'm not in a school. We're not using weighted grades. I'm using a C is the absolute middle and average. So most things on a bell curve should fall there. And this movie is slightly above average, even just,
that doesn't,
in general.
that assumes though that the film and art as a whole does fall on a bell curve, which it doesn't necessarily, particularly when you self-select.
Yeah, but I know that's why I separate them as a subjective and an objective thing. Objectively, if we look at things, we have to be able to look at things objectively, right? We can always say we can look at art as a subjective thing, but we can also look at these pieces of art as how they're crafted. Being part. No, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
we don't need to get into it.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole nother podcast right there. But that is my number 4. Dungeons and Dragons. Enjoyed it a lot, and now it's here. Your number 4.
My number 4. Okay, so back into the indie art house. Like, what is this movie? I've never even heard of it. Well, at least this movie was nominated for an Oscar. It was nominated for Best International Feature. And it's a movie called Close.
Yeah, no clue what that one is. Haven't heard of it ever before.
Basically, basic premise of the movie, it's about these 2 boys in whatever country it's set in, I don't recall. And they're like very close friends.
When you say whatever country, can we get an idea of the country? Is it like Europe-y or
like Europe-y?
Europe-y? Okay.
Yeah. They are white children.
They are white children.
I don't recall the language that they speak because I am a dumb American.
Stupid American.
I don't believe it was French. But yeah, so like they live in this like sort of small like it's like a farmish community. And these like 2 little boys, like they're like the like very close friends, like thick as thieves. Like we see them like one of the boys' mothers like sees the other kid as like her son, and like they like hang out together all the time. Like they like sleep in the same bed together. Like it's very like they have a very close relationship. And then the conflict of the movie starts when they have to go to school, and they basically get asked by the other school kids, "Hey, are you gay?" And that sort of makes the main character kid start to feel uncomfortable that people think are perceiving them that way, and it affects how he behaves with his friend, and it affects their relationship and how like things go forward. And like it, and so like it's just that there's something about that sentiment and that concept of like these 2 kids, like absent of like the judgment of others, are like the best of friends. And then just like this like little idea of like an outside perception makes them feel like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be friends like this. Maybe we shouldn't be like, maybe we need to distance ourselves. I need to do something else. I need to do something more manly. Kid joins hockey. Mm-hmm. Because like he just he feels uncomfortable that people see him that way. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it causes like a lot of like issues between the 2. And then something else happens that kind of isn't my favorite thing that this movie does, but it then leads to a very emotional cathartic ending. And yeah, like I understand why it was nominated for Best International Feature. And this is the first year where I went and watched all the international feature movies, and I gotta say, I get why they're nominating them. They're good movies.
Man, if I wasn't such an uncultured swine, I might have seen some of these the movies you described, which sound really like cool with good concepts. And
you did see All Quiet on the Western Front. That's the one that ended up winning the Best International Feature. But yeah, that one had the benefit of name recognition and Netflix.
Yeah, I was gonna say it came out on Netflix. So like I did originally see its commercial on YouTube though. So I might have sought it out. Like when I saw the commercial, I was like, wow, that looks great. So I might have sought it out elsewise. But yeah, I mean, it came out on Netflix, so it just made it like, wow, cool. I could just watch this. So excellent for that was your number 4?
That was my number 4.
So now we're going to hear your number 3, top 3.
Yeah, my number 3. And for a big change of pace, here's another movie that was nominated for Best International Feature. and until like a month and a half ago was my number one movie of the year. Like 2 movies have come in and like just sort of like slot in above it. And this is a movie where straight up, I don't think a lot of people would actually maybe necessarily like it. Because it is like a very like artsy, like critic movie, I would say. But the movie just deeply affected me at the end. The ending of the movie just like sort of really got to me. And it's a movie called EO.
All right, you're gonna have to tell me about it again.
So the movie follows a donkey named EO, who at the beginning of the movie is like part of like this like a circus troupe thing, and like he like helps with like, I think he's basically used as like a beast of burden in the circus, but like also like one of like the performers there has this like affection for EO, and like sort of like I can't remember exactly what the relationship between the two is, but it's like this lady who like really like loves this donkey. She's just like, oh, EO, not in a creepy way, just like in a, oh, like this animal that she loves. And then the circus is shut down for like animal like abuse things, like you don't see any like, I guess you see some like the owner of the circus is like a little like not great to EO, I guess.
Is this live action?
Yeah, it's live action.
So like it's like a real donkey?
It's a real donkey. It is multiple donkeys, I believe. But yeah, so we then basically follow EO post the circus being sent to like one farm and then being sent to like another farm, and then he sort of like escapes on his own, and he like goes on a journey of, and there's no talking like when the donkey's alone. Like the donkey doesn't have like an inner monologue. This isn't Homeward Bound. It's just a donkey like walking along, getting into situations, and then people will like see the donkey, and like people will be like, hey, that's a donkey, let's put our sport jersey colors on this donkey and like have him like come with us on our celebration march because our team won this soccer match. Or hey, that's a donkey, let's put it to work at our farm or something. And like and EO, like there's no inner monologue, but like he's sort of like depicted as like sometimes like having like thoughts and like in emotions and stuff, reacting to things. And yeah, so you just follow this donkey, and you like sort of like slowly or like built to like sort of like have like this like, you're basically, it's a experiment in like generating empathy in like a creature that I think a lot of people might not necessarily like have like immediate empathy for. Like you don't like necessarily look at a donkey and think like, or for some people you might not necessarily like see a donkey and think, oh, that's like a intelligent, empathetic like being, like that is a beast of burden, that is an animal. And this movie is a very good way of like just sort of like putting you into the world of this creature. And then yeah, it's when the movie ended, I just felt like so like emotionally, this movie, yeah, I really love this movie.
I gotta say, from the sound of that film, I think it makes use of some of the magic of film, of being able to watch like a movie about a creature that's not speaking, but being able to portray that in a way where you can connect and basically watch this story of a donkey where nobody needs to tell you anything, but by just being a part of it, you can grow attached. That's like the magic of film right there.
Yes.
It's probably a very exceptional film in that way, and a very, very good director to be able to put that kind of thing together. So
yeah,
that sounds, I mean, again, even though it's a movie about a donkey, it sounds really cool for that sake.
I really quite enjoyed it. And yeah.
My number 3 is nothing nearly so profound. It's actually just quite straightforward and simple.
If it makes you feel any better, my 2 and 1 are not very profound either. Well, my number 2 is not.
So I'll say that I'm gonna guess that my number 2 was probably what your number 2 and my number 3 are probably what were the same at
They're
one
not.
point. They're not? Oh, maybe they're not. Yeah, okay, you probably. My number 3, just getting into it, is John Wick 4. It's it's just like Sisu. You get what you came for. John Wick's a badass, murdering the shit out of dozens to hundreds of assassins, and killing his way to finish his story off right.
Yeah,
Even though it's definitely not finished because he's definitely not dead. IMO.
Hashtag spoiler question mark.
Ooh.
But it's fine. Like
Spoilers,
if you're interested in John Wick movies, you've watched them.
Yeah.
So
at this point, I mean, it's not that spoiler.
So I could see you thinking that I had John Wick on my top 10, but when I thought about it, I kind of preferred watching Sisu to John Wick. So Sisu is actually above John Wick on my list, and neither made my top 10, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that was because I think, like, when I compared the two, I felt like Sisu was a little bit tighter of a story. Like, it was a self-contained story, whereas John Wick 4 is like the culmination of 4 movies, which, like, isn't like I quite enjoy movies that are not, complete like individual stories, but I think it's more that John Wick 4 is like really, really big, and like it's long, and there's a lot going on that as much as I love that movie, and I don't know if this was just me in the presence of watching that film, I got to be honest, I started to drift off at parts of it. Like I almost fell asleep at parts of it, and I don't think it's the movie's fault. And the scene where I drifted off, I've been told, is a really good scene. I just like, there was just like, and I actually had the same thing happen with Parabellum, and like I remember Parabellum being like, I don't think this is my favorite John Wick movie. And John Wick 4 might actually be my favorite John Wick movie, but I still had that sort of like the movie just, I think it was maybe a little too long. Again, it's still a great movie, and I'm not saying that it's a wrong movie to have in your top 3, top 2, or even your number 1. It is a very good movie. But yeah, just sort of explaining why I have Sisu above it.
Yeah, and I totally get that and understand. Even though I'm rating John Wick highly, I really enjoyed it. But here, the thing is, as I'm hearing you talk about these movies that you watched, and like just hearing you describe them without really giving away too much, I know for certain that if I also watched those movies, I would probably have been rating them in my top 10s as well. I probably would have kind of got what you saw when you watched them. And it would probably be like, yeah, these other movies, while they might have been good and fun, the bigger name kind of movies is what I mostly watched. They wouldn't. I would have knocked them out for better films. And so, I mean, but John Wick, it just in the end, it really just satisfied exactly what it was. It was just like one of the best action movies that come out this year.
Yeah,
and I still did enjoy it. I'll say this, even though John Wick definitely goes to the limits of like getting hit by multiple cars and things, and be the edges of believability, he doesn't go quite as far as Sisu does by the end. So
that is true.
Yeah. And John Wick's just a little cooler, it's just a little, it's got the little more cool, flair, and it's got a story to it also, which I appreciate. A built world, you could say.
I don't want to spoil Sisu, but all I know is that Sisu managed to do something that John Wick couldn't do.
Yes, correct. And didn't even wasn't even really that scathed after that thing. So
that's not what I'm referring to. He did something that John Wick couldn't do, and we can talk about it off it, but I don't want to spoil Sisu.
Yeah. Straight into
number 2.
My number 2 is I feel like this movie almost went under the radar. Like I feel like nobody talked about it, but yeah, like almost my favorite movie of the year. As soon as you and I saw it, I was like, that's going to be one of my favorite movies of the year, is Chevalier.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, like, again, it speaks to some kind of romantic or adventurous sort of thing that I like and am interested in, and tells a good story, and the main actor is just great, and I just really liked it. I mean,
say a little bit about the movie because you said it flew under the radar, so maybe not everyone watched it.
So it's,
or know what it's about.
It depicts what is based on actually a true person, a real person that existed. A half born to an African slave and a wealthy French lord, who put into a basically a private school when he was young, and basically challenged to be the best. Like, you must be the best, basically, because you're black and you're going to be around people that are not like you.
He must be exceptional.
Yeah, you must be exceptional. And so he becomes the most exceptional fencer and violinist and can't remember if there's anything else part, but he is of high noble quality and is like the premier sorry.
He's the chevalier.
Yeah, a premier at fencing. He's basically a highly exceptional person, and he is granted the title of Chevalier of Saint Mark, France, or something, a special title by the Queen. And we see him, while it's really the struggle of how, while he is so exceptional and he has worked so hard, that people still other him. Yeah. Even despite that people still cannot accept him for what he is, and he even despite it all, even despite having proven that he is greater than, most people around him, he is still made lesser. And it's just watching that how that develops, and how he pushes through this tragedy and learns from it and becomes an inspiration. It's just an awesome story, and kind of like just a story within like sort of that igniting of the French Revolution, and captures a noble part of that piece of history in a way, and brings to light something. At the end, it was like, yeah, this is like based on a true story. Like, this was a real person that really did. Maybe I think in some ways it's probably embellished, obviously, but like there really was an African descent, chevalier of France. And that was cool. Like they said that most of the records of him like did not survive, but like they were able to unearth this and now bring it to the screen and point out this exceptional individual story, which I really loved. It again, it just touches like you could say like a fantasy kind of like adventure thing that I love. So, and it's got
that setting that I feel like you seem to be rather fond of that sort of like Amadeus, the movie, like time period of like what the set dressings and everything looks like. Like, it is like at times very reminiscent to me of the movie Amadeus, but like it certainly sets itself apart in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very interested in like early American history, but also just in the post-Renaissance but pre-industrial sort of revolution era,
like 18th century.
Yeah, the 18th, 19th century. So, and it just has a lot of that very cool aesthetic. So yeah, just in that way, I was interested in it. I figured a lot of times I see commercials for stuff and I think I would probably like that. I would probably enjoy it. And I almost knew immediately I would enjoy it. And of course I did. So yeah, easily my second spot.
My second spot. So this whole time there's been like you sort of commenting and me sort of transparently being like, oh, my list has like sort of like artsy, like filmish stuff, like critic, like stuff that like the masses of people haven't necessarily watched. My number 2 movie is not an artsy movie. It is a crowd pleaser, big budget movie that lots of people went and saw, and that's the same for my number 1. My number 1 is the correct answer. Like, well, it's going to be your number 1 too, I'm sure.
Yes, it
is. But my number 2 is. Do you want to wager a guess what my number 2 could be?
A crowd pleaser that everybody went and watched,
or a lot of people went and watched. Tentpole, like big budget, blockbuster type movie.
Is it The Little Mermaid?
No.
Okay, well,
I did like that movie though.
I'm just trying to think. I mean, I'm literally looking at Ryan's list of 78 movies to try and see if I can. Is it Indiana Jones?
It's not.
Okay, well, I'm just like, I feel like you're gonna pull one out from under me here. So I'm like, that's why I was like,
well, if it helps at all, you already named it.
I already named it.
Yeah,
I mentioned it. It's one of my movies.
It's one of your movies.
Is it Super Mario Bros?
It's not.
It's what the fuck? What did I even say?
At number 2, I put Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good and fine.
Yeah.
I literally thought it was going to be some kind of like trick. You're going to be like, it's something you would never think. Like, I loved Indiana Jones' Dial of Destiny.
I liked Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. But hey, it's better than Crystal Skulls. And yeah, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So something I should just sort of like say or sort of preface. I used to not like get too very emotional at movies. Like no movie really made me cry basically until Coco, and that sort of like broke the well in me, and I feel like I've just become like a little bit more like emotionally open to letting film affect me and like make me cry and stuff. And the movie EO, when the movie ended, like I shed a tear. Guardians of the Galaxy got me to shed a tear in the opening scene. And basically I knew from like the opening sequence of the movie that like it was going to be hard for this movie to not be something that I absolutely love. And like the opening sequence, if you don't recall, or if you haven't seen the movie, just follows Rocket Raccoon walking along, like sort of like looking at like the Guardians and their place in like the sort of society that they've built, and he's listening to an acoustic version of the song "Creep." And like he's like sort of like singing along to it lightly, and he's just walking along, and like I love that song, and the like way that it is utilized there to like just like it could be argued that's a little on the nose, but it's being used to sort of like capture Rocket's like internal feelings. Like even when he has like this family, he still feels like an outsider. Like they're a family of outsiders, but he still feels like the outsider among them. Mm-hmm. And that's something so like resonant and like emotionally affecting to me. And then the movie itself, like past that, like it's just like it volleys back between like being like fun, like very funny, like had me laughing like more than most movies this year had me laughing scenes, to like very like dark somber notes. And I've heard it criticized for like being like a little too back and forth between those two tones and like not juggling it very well. And maybe I just like I don't feel that way about it at all. Like I really love things that like can be like funny, haha, lighthearted one moment and be like very dark the next moment. My favorite TV show is BoJack Horseman, and it definitely it doesn't do that slingshot quite as much because like it's allowed to give like full like sequences to the sort of darker stuff. But it like I like that balance between dark and light, and I just love the Guardians. Like they're the best thing that the MCU ever did. Was the first Guardians movie in my opinion. And this movie, while maybe not being as good as the first Guardians, and maybe not being as good as Guardians 2, though I think I like it more than Guardians 2 personally. Yeah, it gives a great send-off to the trilogy of those movies. It's a great send-off of James Gunn from the MCU to sort of join DC, and we'll see if he's able to fix things. But I have some faith in him because like the first things he did in DC were The Suicide Squad, which was a good movie, and then Peacemaker, which is like
it's fire.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah,
surprisingly great. Yeah, you know, as much as I think when I talk about Guardians, I like only set a criticism. Yeah, plenty of good things, and I let me because now we're talking about.
I would have expanded on it then, but I knew I was going to talk about it later.
Yeah, so and I do want to touch back on. Yeah, I think the depth of Rocket's story here really brings something special, and I appreciate that a lot. And yeah, I mean, in the end, like I really want to love everything Marvel. Like I just want to enjoy everything Marvel, and I just feel like I've been disappointed many times. This movie, I was like, thank you for this being good, like good enough to enjoy and not have to feel like I'm like pointing out things, or you know, even though the criticisms that I've heard about Guardians, I basically will reflect. I think sometimes that tonal shift is not, you know, executed perfectly, and I get that as well. And again, as I said, you know, a thing that I've already complained about with Drax, but overall, yeah, it's just a good movie. It was just a good, solid movie that, you know, still gives me, it does go from the great deep emotion to we're laughing again, which is awesome. I like when movies can do that as well.
Yeah.
Though they obviously didn't do it quite as good as one of the best movies of all time, Everything Ever All at Once, that goes straight from crying to laughing and then crying again perfectly.
Yeah. And yeah, so like I said, like EO was my number one movie, and then the Guardians came along and like pushed it aside, became my number one movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels nice to have, a comic book superhero movie like just be so exceptional that it pushes through to number one.
Yeah, immediately.
And it was great that happened twice this year.
Yep.
Yeah.
So our number ones are the same. We knew it as soon as we walked out of the theater together that it was the best movie of the year. Best movie of the year up to this point, without a doubt. And
there's a good chance it'll be the best movie of the year by the end of the year.
Yeah,
because it's truly exceptional.
It's truly just, I mean, it's something else. The art form that they use in this movie actually allows it to go beyond what it uses. It goes beyond because of how it's portrayed, how it is done. Because it's an animated film, it uses that animation to its absolute
Wait a minute.
limit.
Ant-Man and the Wasp isn't animated. Oh yeah, our number one is
it's the other bug superhero,
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Yes, just
if you've not seen this movie, go see it. It's still in theaters. It's the best movie of the year.
Yep, so far. Again, I do leave it open that like something else, some of the movies we have lined up could have some great impact, but again, it's just what they do with color and story and it's hard to even like encapsulate it all. I do have some slight criticisms here, but still, even despite that, like the experience of watching that in the theater was just amazing.
Yeah, the biggest critique of the movie, I think, is a somewhat obvious one if you watch the movie, and it's that there's another movie coming next, and this movie relies on the fact that there's another movie coming next.
Yeah,
but as a number 2 movie in a trilogy, it is among the best like number 2 movies in trilogies, of which there are like truly exceptional movies that fall into that category. Like it is like, I don't think it is overstating to put it in like the same category as an Empire Strikes Back, a Two Towers, a Godfather Part 2, The Dark Knight, like movies, like movie trilogies. Or in some of those cases, some of those, the third movie isn't always the best movie of the 3, but like the second movie can be like the sort of standout of the trilogy. And I think there's a possibility that like we see Beyond the Spider-Verse and that this movie could still sort of stand head and shoulders among the 3 as like the best watch. But I don't know. There is the potential that Beyond will go beyond.
Yeah. So we'll see if they can stick the landing at the end of this, trilogy. But yeah, it's just the best movie of the year so far. Like, yeah, it just, it's something else, man. It is a piece of art to behold. It is an experience. It's worth, I think it's still in theaters. And as of the time we're releasing
it's probably the number 1 movie in the world because the movies that came out after it to try and compete were The Flash and Elemental, and neither of them did so hot. The Flash or Elemental is like holding better because like it's getting like pretty good like word of mouth. I think like it's I don't know where I have it ranked, but it's probably like fairly high. Like Elemental is a good movie. The Flash is a movie.
It is a movie.
Yeah,
it is something.
Yeah.
So. Well, as we're on that subject, let's, give a send off to our number 1 Spider-Man. Go see it while it's in theater still. Get that experience. Definitely worth it. But we do have a sort of like maybe some honorable mentions. I know Ryan's probably got like plenty of honorable mentions.
I can go off and list.
Before you do yours, let me say, so I don't have honorable mentions. I have the things that didn't make it because it's only 4 more movies.
Yeah.
So let me say that right before we started the podcast, I was literally torn at my number 10, right? It was like 2 movies I was trying to decide between. And again, of only 4 more movies I could even be looking at. Beau's Afraid and Ant-Man and the Wasp, okay? My feeling on these movies were, Ant-Man and the Wasp, again, I want to like MCU movies. I want to enjoy them. And there's a part of me that did enjoy some of the big action parts of it, but it's not that great of a movie. And so whereas Beau is Afraid, I think is a better high concept, more well-crafted film, but ultimately it kind of went over my head. You know, sometimes I like to think that I can be sophisticated in how I watch movies, but you know, I just admit when I have to that sometimes the shit just, you know, like gets past me. And I'm just like, I mean, I kind of see what it was trying to do. And I talked to a friend of mine who's, you know, maybe helped zone in more on what it was trying to portray. And I get it, but I mean, maybe it just didn't sync for me as well or something. And so I was torn between these two movies where I was like, one's a better film, but the other one I probably enjoyed more. And then I ended up, Ryan actually said, he was like, well, like Renfield was basically the next one. And it was where I thought it was a decent enough film and I enjoyed it decent enough. So it hit just enough in both marks to just say, I'm going to put these other ones out.
Yeah. And when you told me those three movies, I was like, Renfield's the best of those three, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, and then the other two movies that I've seen this year was The Flash, which, I mean, I would have made this if I had only seen 10 movies and the 10th one was The Flash, I would have given you a top 9. And Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which
you didn't even finish.
I didn't even finish. I literally watched it about halfway and was like, I was close to my bedtime. And I just decided I'd rather go to bed. All right.
So before I go into my honorable mentions, which I'm just gonna rapid fire a bunch of movies and like, hey, I think they're all good. But before that, I tried to put out like a survey to like hopefully get people to say what their favorite movies were. I got like 8 responses. One of them's me, so I got 7 responses. But I just want to name some of the movies that other people listed like in their top 3. Some of which we have already named, but just to sort of like give like a hint at like what other people have seen. Also, all the answers I got to this were like a month and a half ago, so it was prior to Spider-Man coming out. So Spider-Man's not named on here, but I'm sure people who have seen it would rank it high. But yeah, favorite movie, Infinity Pool, John Wick Chapter 4, Dungeons and Dragons, Super Mario Bros. Movie, The Menu. Menu came out last year, but if you watched it this year, it counts. Yeah, so the only one of those that we hadn't named were The Menu, which, again, came out last year. I think it's a good movie. And Infinity Pool, which I don't think you've seen, Bob. Infinity Pool is wild.
You did tell me about it. You actually kind of like spoiled it a little bit because I didn't necessarily, even though I kind of would like to go see it.
I believe it's an A24 movie. And it's got the what are they called? They have the last name.
The Wachowskis? I don't
know.
The Hoffmans.
There's like a brother and a dad.
Oh! It's is it the ones not the Hoffmans?
He's the Northman guy.
Skarsgård.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is Alexander Skarsgård, I believe. He's the one from the Northman. He's in this movie. He's the main character, and it's also got I can't remember her name, Mia Goth from Pearl and X. Mm-hmm. They're in this movie. Very, very good movie. Very trippy movie. Certainly not for everyone. But I'm glad someone brought it up as their favorite. Second favorite, kind of more of the same. Someone mentioned Top Gun Maverick and Glass Onion. Again, those are movies from last year that I think those movies made it onto our top 10s from last year. And then third favorite movies, another Infinity Pool, more of the same movies. Dragon Ball Super. I have fallen off of Dragon Ball since I was a kid. The movie 65. I don't want to be rude to this person, so I will not share my thoughts on that movie. And then, and there were some honorable mentions that other people listed, like Renfield and Evil Dead Rise. But let me just rapid fire other movies that like up through like my top 30. I'm going to rapid fire 20 movies that I think are good. All right, let's go. Sisu, Asteroid City, The Quiet Girl, John Wick Chapter 4, The Blackening, Creed 3, The Little Mermaid, A Man Called Otto, Air, Evil Dead Rises, 1001, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, Suzume, Cocaine Bear, The Super Mario Bros. Movie, Fast X, No Hard Feelings, Elemental, To Leslie, and Infinity Pool.
Okay, give me 5 movies that are bad.
5 movies that are bad. I'm going to save the Mm,
Give me your. I want you to tell me 5 movies that like. Listen, people are not going to watch 78 movies, Ryan. I need you to tell me 5 movies that people should not go see. Don't even waste their time.
So the 2 worst movies of the year for me are one movie. One of the movies people won't even be aware of. The other movie is a movie that I've heard people really like. So I'm gonna skip those 2, especially because I can talk about them more in depth when we get to our end of the year list, because they'll probably still be in my top 5 worst. But 5 movies I think people shouldn't see. 65. I said I didn't want to harsh that person that liked that movie though. All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, which was nominated for Best Documentary, and I just did not like it at all. And that's I don't know why I didn't like it, because apparently it's very good. House Party, it's like it's a house party movie. You People, which is the Jonah Hill, Eddie Murphy movie on Netflix. Just like I kind of like
Jonah Hill and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah,
made a movie that's on. Oh wait, it's where he's like getting married to his daughter, right?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Okay, I do remember.
I like, and I actually was laughing at the movie at the beginning part, but like it just becomes so exhausting to watch. And the worst movie that you could watch this year, like that people might actually take the time to go out and watch, is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. That movie sucks. That's a bad movie.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, I mean, it looks like a low budget fucking poop film, but
yeah, it was like
I'm sure somebody might. I'm sure that there's like some horror fans that probably get a kick out of it.
And you know what's fun about that though is that it's one of the worst movies I've seen this year, but I still, after learning that the people who made it are planning to do like a whole like cinematic universe of like public domain Disney characters, like they're going to do, I think, like a Bambi movie and some other like classic Disney film that went into the public domain. I heard that and I was like, all right, sign me up. I want to watch those. But I hope that they take like the money that they made off of this project and put it into like, making like somewhat decent scripts and maybe getting some better like kill setups.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that they can make a bloody, disgusting, horror twisted Disney universe that's actually worth watching. But yeah, don't watch those movies unless you disagree with me and you really liked one of those movies and think that I'm wrong, in which case I might be wrong.
Also, don't watch The Flash.
Yeah, it's not
worth your time.
Yeah, no. Watch.
It's a meh movie for the end of a universe that doesn't matter anymore. Watch
pretty much any other movie that is currently in theaters.
Yeah. So there's our top 10s. There's some recommends on what not to watch. I think that's it. Any closing thoughts, brother?
I like movies.
Movies are cool. Yeah, I like movies.
Yeah, you should watch more of them.
I'm gonna tell you right now, Ryan. If you come and tell me more often, I'm more willing to watch these international movies that you found and watch the obscure-ish movies, because I believe that they will be good if you tell me they're gonna be good. Then I am going to go watch the most mainstream advertised movies, because those movies I'm not gonna assume that they're good. They're probably gonna be, here you go, opium of the masses. Here's content, consumer. It's a bit of a cynical view, but I mean, I think it's basically accurate.
I will say, like, when I saw Close and EO, like, I had to pay to see both of them, and they probably would both require payment now. Like, they might be on streaming services at this point that make them easier to watch. And if
they're exceptional than they were, I'm not even opposed to paying for them, even at home.
Yeah. If Brian and Charles is still on Peacock, because that's how I watched it, I do think that's a nice one to watch.
Yes, Peacock, a truly premier service for streaming.
Yes, that I get free because I have Xfinity internet.
Yes, that's how most people probably watch it.
Yes,
for free because they have Xfinity.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is all for us then. So,
indeedly dadly.
Yeah. Well, until next time, folks. This has been Robert
and Ryan.
Have a good one.